Elinor Smith by me, Alex Levitt. Her early life, she was born to Todd and Maribel Smith in New York on August 17th, 1911. Both her parents were Broadway performers, with her dad being famous at the time for playing Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, the play, of course, not the movie, and her mom was a opera singer. In her early years, she traveled around with them across the United States and as well to Britain and France while her dad performed. And an interesting tidbit about that is that she was in Paris at the onset of World War One and had to flee as a result of the beginning of the war. And she was on the last boat, according to her memoir at least, the last boat that fled France for the United States before France declared war. And so forth. After returning to the United States, her father continued to do stand-up comedy and acting while she grew up in Freeport, New York, which is pictured down here. Her introduction to aerospace, she first flew when she was 6 years old when a pilot by the name of Louis Gabbert offered her father the chance to fly, offered her the chance to fly if her father paid him $10. Her father accepted, and she flew for the first time and continued flying throughout the summer. And that really sparked her passion for aviation. She continued flying. Her first lessons were from a barnstormer by the name of Clyde Pangborn when she was just 10. And since due to her young age, she had to have blocks tied to her feet so she could reach the pedals and actually pilot the aircraft. Initially, her father only wanted her to fly during the cruise portion of the flight, never taking off or landing. But when she was 16 and her father was out of town, her mother finally gave her permission and she began learning how to do that. And then a short 10 days later, she performed her first solo. And from there, she continued to make history by becoming the first ever, the youngest person ever to receive a pilot license at just 16 years old. And this would only be the start of her many different feats in aviation. In response to a dare, this is probably what propelled her into the spotlight the most. In response to a dare, she became the first and only pilot ever to fly under the four bridges on the East River in New York. This is her right down here. Um, she was, according to her memoir, she was the main thing she was scared about when she did this was that the Department of Commerce would come after her license due to the severity of such an accident or such a um, event. But after meeting with the mayor, and the mayor learning that it was only a 17-year-old who had done this, the mayor personally lobbied to the Department of Commerce that she should not get her license revoked, and instead they only suspended her for 10 days and asked for her autograph. After this, she continued to set multiple records, including multiple endurance records, speed records, and she became the first woman to perform a mid-air refueling. Her most harrowing record that she set was her altitude record, where she flew up to 32,000 feet in an unpressurized cockpit. And while she was climbing, her aircraft, she lost consciousness and her engine stalled out and performed a forward dive. Luckily, however, she regained consciousness about 5 or 10,000 feet lower and was able to regain control of the aircraft and save herself from dying. And not only did she set that altitude record, she went ahead and did it again to set an even higher one. And then at just 19 years old, she was voted Woman Pilot of the Year, really solidifying her her abilities and her stance in culture at the time. Towards the end of her life, she worked as a test pilot for two major airline manufacturers, and she was the first woman test pilot to ever work for those companies. She later married Patrick Sullivan and settled down, not really flying too much while she raised her four children. After her husband passed away, though, she got some opportunities to continue flying, and she did some stuff with the Air Force. And her last tidbit of history is that she became the oldest person to land a NASA Space Shuttle simulator at the age of 89. And unfortunately, she passed away at the age of 98. She was really a historic and important figure in aviation history. Thank you for listening.